Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm at the famous graveyard in Srebrenica. As you can see, I'm just showing you the graveyard. I'm going to go all the way around and just show you some of the graves. Now, if you look very, very carefully, you can see on here, I'm just going to go to this one here. It's in obviously the local language, but you see Al-Fatiha, so you should recite Al-Fatiha for them. And these are the graves of the people who were shaheed, basically, and martyrs. And around 8,000 people were martyred in this area alone. And this is after the conflict began, so after the siege on Srebrenica began. And they found around 6,000 bodies. So they've identified about 6,000 bodies. There was a janazah here, I'm told, just a few weeks ago. So they're still finding bodies. And if you look at the landscape, I'm going to try and show you just the landscape around it. It's very hilly, so bodies are all over the place. A lot of the graves, mass graves they found, were through confessions or through excavations. So if you look, you can see mountains all around. It's very hilly all the way around, everywhere. You can't see behind the trees. If you look up there, there's hills there everywhere. So this graveyard was established in 2003, if I've got it correct, and they're continuously finding bodies. I've been told that they don't always find entire body, so sometimes they find a limb. I mean, of course it'll be bones now, because the bodies were sometimes moved between places, and so they left parts behind. But this is a genocide, and it's literally next to where the Dutch peacekeepers were. And there's a whole history about the ambivalence and the way the Dutch peacekeepers failed in what they were meant to do. So the Dutch peacekeepers were kept in a place behind over there. It used to be a former battery factory, and that's where they were stationed. They were stationed in various places, the peacekeepers. They were stationed in other places, and other peacekeepers came along here during the conflict. And we just watched before a very graphic documentary, and I think every Muslim, especially because I live in Britain, every Muslim living in Britain, I think it's a farz kifaya, a communal obligation that we come here at least once in our lifetime with our children to show them that a genocide happened in Europe. Now there's a constant framing, which is done on purpose, to try to pretend that this was nothing to do with Europe. This is a genocide that happened in Europe. It's the worst genocide in Europe since the World War. I want to talk about the World War briefly. So World War, they frame it very interestingly as the World War. But when you read the World War, and I did some of it at university, what you'll see is that it was European powers fighting amongst themselves, but they dragged the entire world into their messy wars, World War I, World War II, and they both happened in the last century. So we have to remember that Europe, and there are books that I can recommend, Europe is a messy place. It's a violent place. It's constantly powers fighting with each other, and they like to project this idea that other parts of the world, especially Muslim countries in particular, but Africa and other countries, are somehow violent. And we're often told that these places are where violence is normal. So even we, when we think about this, we think about this in terms of, when violence happens in Africa or in the Middle East, it's normal. That's a normal way of living. That's factually untrue. These were places of peace and stability for centuries until European colonialists came there. And in fact, when we think of Europe and we think of wars in Europe, now we think of it as odd. Why would there be wars and conflicts in Europe? But the inverse is actually true. Europe is a vast graveyard. I'm using the metaphor of a graveyard. Europe is a vast graveyard of experiments. All sorts of experiments. Marxism, Nazism. You can keep going and going with all of these experiments, trying to organize the world in a certain way. So Europe is actually the most violent place, and it exports violence. And I'm not making this up. I mean, if you read history very, very carefully, you'll find that the Muslim world, for example, the Arab world, Middle East, as they call it now, was a place of peace and stability when the Ottomans were there. India, lots of other places, Africa, and these sort of places. We have to be really careful that we don't fall for these stereotypes. You can see, I just want to show you the graveyard. Thousands, literally thousands of shaheed, I would call them shaheed and honor them with that title, martyrs who were killed men and women were separated. The men, many of the men, we watched videos where they were told they'd be safe, were butchered in cold blood. They were shot and they were massacred. And the world failed. The UN failed. The international community failed. And when I say that, you know exactly what I'm referring to, what's happening right now in Palestine. So these are names of all the people in our alphabetical order of the Shaheed, the Shuhada, who were killed here. So I'll just pick, one at random here. Yusuf Saviuddin, 1977, and then 19 something here, 76 or something. But you can see the entire area is marked with names of all the people that were essentially martyred here, Shuhada. These are all the Shuhada, all of them. Huge graveyard. So I can't emphasize how important it is for all of us, friends in the UK, Muslims in the UK in particular, to come here. It's very, very important. You should make a niyyah to come here. There are groups that come to Bosnia. There are other parts you can visit, Albania and other countries, Kosovo. But you should come here with your children. You should read about it. In our masjids, unfortunately, we don't read about history, and people find history boring. But actually, it's very, very important. And the Quran, of course, talks about historical events, not because they're for entertainment, but for us to learn. Because sadly, human beings have a history of repeating their mistakes time and time again. And the Quran reminds us of pride, arrogance, and these sort of things. And we can learn what happens when we lose sight of these things. So as Muslims, we have to be aware that the greatest genocide that took place on European soil after World War I and World War II was in Bosnia, in Europe, and the victims were the Muslims. The Muslims were the victims of this violence. Important lessons for all of us to learn.